One of the most important skills for the graph and chart questions, but also just for generally the reading passages, is to know what words matter, to kind of understand the code of the SAT. So we have this chart here, we have a passage we're going to read, but focus on the end here. Georgia Tech roboticists, along with ethicists, were interested in people's perceptions of robots' competence. They recruited participants and asked them how likely they think it is. They recruited participants and asked them how likely they think it is that a robot could do the work required in various occupations. Participants' evaluations varied widely depending on which occupation was being considered. For example, right? So they're telling in code that we're going to have to compare multiple occupations and that the numbers for those are going to be different. I know that without even looking at the chart because I know how to read the code, right? Like that's really what it is there's probably going to be many answers, or at least different parts of answers here that are focused on the parts of the chart that are correct, right? That they provide correct numbers, but it has to also match this thing that they want from us from the chart, right? So let's just look at the choices. 47% of participants believe that it is somewhat or very likely that a robot could work effectively as a teacher, but 37% of respondents believe that it is somewhat or very unlikely that a robot could do so. So if it's varying widely based on occupation, this is only talking about one occupation. So without wasting the time and going to the chart to figure out whether those numbers are even accurate, I just already know this choice is wrong. It's not so much about the numbers. It's about the fact that it's not hitting the example that we are asked to provide by the passage. Let's look at B. 9% of participants were neutral about whether a robot could work effectively as a television news anchor, which is the same percent of participants who were neutral when asked about a robot working as a surgeon. Well, surgeon, news anchor, those are different jobs. But if we're talking about the same number, that's missing the other part, right? The participants' evaluations varied widely. It's the same number. That's no variation at all, right? So this is missing the other aspect of this last sentence here before the blank. So let's look at C. 82% of participants believe that it is somewhat or very likely that a robot could work effectively as a tour guide, but only 16% believe that it is somewhat or very likely that a robot could work as a surgeon. So those are different occupations. Those are different numbers. So far, so good. Now, rather than go and check to see if those numbers are accurate, let's just look at D and see what we get there. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, and then I can go to the chart. But I don't want to waste time if it's not going to be necessary. D. 62% of participants believe that it is somewhat or very unlikely that a robot could work effectively as a firefighter. Well, that's not comparing anything, right? It's not comparing different occupations. It's not comparing different values for those occupations. So it's got to be C. Now, if I really wanted to be sure that I wasn't falling for a trap, I could just go back and double check. So 82% believe that it is somewhat or very likely that a robot could work as a tour guide. So tour guide is here, somewhat or very likely, 82%. Only 16% believe that it is somewhat or very likely that a robot could work as a surgeon. Surgeon, 16%. Yeah, all checks out, right? So these graph and chart questions are difficult because we don't know what aspect of the question we're really getting to start. Is it more about the content of the passage, the thing that the passage is trying to get out of us? Or is it more about the numbers and the facts presented in the graphs and charts? It could go either way. It could be both things at once, right? So you're going to have to feel it out as you go. But I do think when you see this kind of sentence, you need to recognize very quickly that it's asking you for a specific type of answer choice. It's going to make some sort of comparison. If the choice does not make that comparison, it's wrong. So get in the habit of recognizing when they're asking you for specific things. That way you don't have to waste time evaluating choices that are very clearly not giving you what the passage is asking for.